You don't notice it at first, maybe just a bit of tightness when you stand up, a strange fullness in your chest after lunch, a heaviness you explain away with the weather, your medication, or a poor night's sleep. It passes, so you keep going. You move a little slower, but you chalk that up to being wiser, more deliberate. You heat your usual meal, the one you've had for years, the tray with the comforting photo on the front, the familiar scent filling the kitchen in minutes. It's fast, it's easy, it's routine, and for a while it feels like enough. But something small starts to shift, not all at once. A quiet pulse in your neck, a sudden flutter before bedtime, a lightheaded moment when reaching too fast. These aren't dramatic alarms, they're whispers, the kind your body sends when it's asking gently for your attention. You're not in danger yet, but you are being warned. And the most dangerous thing? These warnings often sound like aging, so we ignore them. Your heart, though, has a different story. A private storm it's been weathering silently with every meal you trusted to do no harm. Not because you made a mistake, not because you've been careless, but because no one told you that what fits into a microwave might not fit your body anymore. It's not the machine. It's the message hidden in the ingredients, the packaging, the false promises dressed in bright colors and bold claims. And so, beneath the comfort of routine, something begins. Not a catastrophe, not yet, but a slow tide rising inside you, the kind that doesn't knock on your door, the kind you feel only if you've learned how to listen. But listening is hard when the signals are so subtle. After all, you've been doing everything right, watching your sugar, skipping red meat, walking every day even when your knees complain. You've given up fried foods. You've added greens. You even switched to whole grain pasta. So when someone suggests your ready-made meals might be hurting you, it feels almost insulting. You've worked too hard to be undermined by something so ordinary. And they don't look like a problem. The labels speak your language. Low cholesterol, heart smart, made with real ingredients. The salt, lower than it used to be. The fat, trimmed down and baked in. The portions, controlled. The idea that these meals could be part of the problem seems backwards. These were supposed to help, weren't they? That's the trap. Not because you've been tricked, but because you've been careful. And careful people believe what they're told when it's wrapped in approval, stamped with check marks, sealed in boxes that look like progress. You didn't fall for convenience. You chose it. Wisely even, for your schedule, your strength, your independence. Microwave meals helped you stay nourished when cooking felt like too much. But your body isn't asking whether you meant well. It's asking whether it can keep handling the hidden load. The load you didn't see because no one taught you how to read between the lines. Because the problem with these meals isn't always what's on the label, it's what's left out of the conversation. The quiet extras, preservatives, synthetic fats, sodium-packed not in flavor, but in shelf life, that build up in blood vessels and pressure valves your doctor only measures after damage has begun. So you keep doing your best, and your best keeps betraying you, not because you've failed, but because something inside these boxes isn't telling the whole truth. And still, there's no crash, no moment of collapse to confirm what your body's been trying to whisper. Instead, the changes arrive like fog. Soft, creeping, easy to ignore until you realize how hard it's become to see. You forget small things more often. Your ankles stay puffy longer. Sleep feels less restful. You're winded walking the same distance that felt fine just months ago, but nothing's dramatic enough to panic. You assume this is just what 70 feels like, or maybe 80, or maybe just a bad week. But your heart keeps the record. Every extra gram of sodium stiffens its rhythm. Every processed fat sneaks into the lining of your vessels. Every preservative, every emulsifier, small names on the back of the box, speaks a language your blood doesn't understand. And with every meal, your body adjusts. Not to get better, to survive the imbalance. That's what makes this danger so hard to name. There's no explosion, only erosion. Like a shoreline giving way grain by grain. Your blood pressure ticks up unnoticed. Your insulin response lags, then overcompensates. The valves in your heart start to lose their supple give. and no alarm sounds, not yet. You might feel it in your patience first, shorter than usual, or your energy, lower than you remember, or your emotions, heavier for reasons you can't quite name. It doesn't feel like heart trouble, it feels like being tired of everything. But underneath that fatigue is a machine working harder than it should, one that was never meant to metabolize artificial structures disguised as food. And still, you trust the labels. You believe in the effort you've made, so you keep heating the meals, you keep following the plan. And meanwhile, the damage keeps happening, slowly enough that no one catches it, gently enough that you don't see it until something finally gives. By the time someone tells you what's really inside those meals, you've already eaten hundreds. You remember hearing it in a waiting room or reading it in a headline you scrolled past. Something about sodium, maybe. Something about preservatives. But the box in your freezer has a seal, a checkmark, a heart, a symbol that looks official. It feels endorsed, clinical, safe. The kind of thing someone in a lab coat would recommend. And maybe they did. Maybe it came from a brochure or a wellness visit. Maybe a dietitian mentioned it once in passing. These are okay in moderation, but no one defined moderation. No one explained that for an aging heart, moderation doesn't mean what it used to, that after 60, your kidneys process sodium differently, that your blood vessels respond more sensitively to certain fats, that inflammation no longer resets overnight. What no one told you, and what few people are paid to say, is that many of these so-called healthy meals are built more for marketing longevity than human longevity. They're tested for shelf life, not cellular life, approved for low calories, not low inflammation, measured against outdated nutrition panels that don't reflect how aging bodies shift their needs. So when you eat them, you're not eating science. You're eating the appearance of science, a version of health designed to comfort buyers, not bodies. And because you care about your health, you believe the language. Lean, light, no added sugar, whole grain. But what hides behind those phrases are dozens of ingredients whose names you don't recognize, because they weren't meant for taste, but for texture, color, and chemistry. You've been eating meals that pass the test, but it's the wrong test. And your body, wiser than the label, has known it all along. That exhaustion, that tension behind your eyes, that restless pressure in your chest at night. Those aren't signs of failure. They're signs that the food you trusted has quietly fallen out of step with the body you live in now. So you begin to wonder, maybe it isn't just aging. Maybe it's your body inching closer to burnout, trying to speak before it gives out, because it has been speaking. You just didn't know the language. That ache in your lower back after sitting too long. The heartbeat that skips just once, then twice. The light squeeze in your ribs when you lie on your side. Not pain, not panic, just something. Not quite right. You dismiss it. You breathe through it. You push yourself up, walk it off, chalk it up to stress or stiffness or sleep. But your body isn't confused. It's doing what it's always done, adapting, protecting, signaling. It's trying to flush the excess sodium, regulate the disrupted hormones, compensate for the missing minerals. And while it does, it asks for mercy in the only ways it can. A sudden cramp, a restless night, a heaviness in your chest after dinner. This is not betrayal. This is resilience under strain. A protest so quiet it feels like fatigue. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because when harm doesn't roar, we don't name it. We don't treat it. We don't stop. We just get used to the new normal, a little more tired, a little more forgetful, a little more short of breath. You didn't ignore your body, you just believed it was supposed to feel this way, that getting older meant losing energy, patience, ease. But that's not what aging is. That's what inflammation feels like. That's what pressure inside your arteries does over time. That's what your meals, trusted and familiar, have been doing, not with malice, but with ingredients your system no longer recognizes as food. And still, your body doesn't give up. It keeps adjusting. It keeps showing up. It keeps waiting for you to hear the protest behind the silence. And once you do, the change begins not with punishment or fear, but with relief. Relief doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it begins with a question, one that interrupts the guilt and says, what if it's not you that's the problem? What if it's not even the microwave? Because the microwave, that box you've leaned on for years, is not the enemy. It's a tool, a fast one, a helpful one that lets you stay independent when chopping and sautéing feel like a chore. It's not the heating method that's wearing you down, it's what's going into it. And that changes everything. When you stop blaming the microwave and start looking at the food, a different picture emerges. One where frozen meals aren't all bad, but where most of them were built to last in a warehouse, not in a body still learning how to age with grace. They're designed to survive time, not support healing. So yes, they're convenient, but what they bring with them, the sodium load, the stabilizers, the chemically softened textures, arrives quietly and stays long after the meal is gone. But here's the shift. The microwave can become your ally again. Not by doing something new, but by returning to something simpler. Because this was never about punishing convenience. It was about reclaiming it, refusing to let your only option be something built for shelf space instead of heart space. You don't have to give up the rhythm of your days. You don't have to spend hours at the stove. You just have to stop feeding your heart what it can't recognize and start feeding it what it still knows how to use. The story doesn't end in blame. It turns here, gently, into possibility. The kind where a different kind of meal, made with a few honest ingredients heated in the same machine, begins not just to feed you, but to free you. She didn't think she was doing anything wrong. In fact, she was proud of how well she was managing. Her freezer was neatly organized, labeled meals for lunch and dinner, grouped by flavor and brand. She'd chosen the ones with vegetables, picked the ones marked heart healthy. She drank her water, took her pills, and rarely missed a walk unless the weather turned cold. Her doctor said she was doing fine, but something inside her felt otherwise. Not fear, not even pain, just off. It started with little things. Waking up groggy even after 8 hours. A pressure behind her eyes when she bent over. A sense of tightness when she laughed too hard. She thought maybe her heart was acting up, but her tests looked okay, so she kept going. The meals helped, quick to prepare, easy to clean up, and comforting in their routine. They saved her time, saved her effort, saved her from standing too long at the stove. They felt like an accomplishment. But one morning, something shifted. She heated a meal she'd had a dozen times before, chicken, potatoes, green beans, harmless. But 20 minutes later, her chest fluttered. Her breath felt shallow. She sat down, waited, and it passed. Still, it happened again the next day, and the next. That's when someone finally looked, not at her heart, but at her meals. They added it up. Nearly 1,800 milligrams of sodium in one tray. 2 types of modified starch, hydrogenated oil, hidden sugar, 4 preservatives she couldn't pronounce, and no fiber, not nearly enough potassium. It wasn't one tray, it was every tray. It wasn't one mistake. It was the slow layering of hundreds of tiny ones. Ingredients no one warned her about, effects no one measured until they began to show. She hadn't failed. She'd followed the rules, the wrong ones, and once she changed the food, not everything, just enough, the noise in her body began to quiet. Not overnight, but it quieted. Because the body remembers how to heal when we stop giving it reasons not to. It's always in there. Sometimes bold, sometimes hidden, but always present. Sodium, the one ingredient no microwave meal forgets. It's what gives flavor when freshness is gone. It keeps textures soft, colors bright, and expiration dates distant. And for a while your body could handle it. It flushed the excess, adapted to the swings, but aging changes the rules. And sodium, once harmless in moderation, becomes a slow, invisible weight. The numbers aren't flashy. One tray here, 700 milligrams. Another, 1,100. A snack later, a quick bowl of soup. Before you know it, you've crossed 3,000 milligrams, when your aging heart was only built to handle 1,500. Not because the limit changed, because your ability to compensate did. With age, kidneys lose precision. Blood vessels lose elasticity. The sodium that used to pass through now lingers, drawing in fluid, tightening the arteries, nudging blood pressure just a little higher each week. And high blood pressure doesn't announce itself. It settles in. It thickens the walls of the heart. It stiffens the vessels in the brain. It stretches the tiny capillaries in your eyes, your kidneys, your legs. You don't feel it until the damage has already been done. And yet the label says reduced sodium. It says low salt. But compared to what? A double cheeseburger? A bag of chips? The comparison hides the truth. Even the lighter versions carry more than your body can quietly process. This isn't about becoming salt-phobic. It's about becoming salt-aware. It's about asking how something so small can have such a deep, long echo, not because you overdid it, but because no one adjusted the math when your body changed. And here's the hardest part. You can't taste the danger. Many of these meals don't taste salty because manufacturers use sodium in forms your tongue can't detect, but your blood still absorbs. That quiet, bloated feeling after lunch, that slight throb behind your eyes in the evening, that's your body holding water it can't release. That's your heart working just a little too hard, for just a little too long. And all of it, every flutter, every tightening, started with a pinch here, a sprinkle there, repeated until it became a quiet, dangerous norm. And just when you think you've outsmarted the salt, there's sweetness, lurking not in dessert, but in disguise. It doesn't always come with the name sugar. It wears different masks now: sucralose, maltodextrin, aspartame, corn syrup solids, evaporated cane juice. Each one crafted to reassure you, to suggest control, to echo health. No added sugar, diabetic friendly. But sweetness, like salt, is no longer just about taste. It's about chemistry. It's about how your aging body responds, slowly, then suddenly. You may not notice it in the moment. The meal isn't even sweet. It's lasagna, or meatloaf, or turkey with gravy. But a closer look at the label tells another story. A hidden syrup in the sauce, a modified starch to smooth the texture, a stabilizer made from sugar alcohols that upset your digestion, disrupt your insulin, confuse your metabolism, and while it may not spike your blood sugar the way table sugar does, it still speaks to your body in the wrong language. Artificial sweeteners and sugar derivatives don't just live in the bloodstream. They influence hormones, leptin, ghrelin, insulin. They trigger cravings, not satisfaction. They can raise triglycerides, disrupt heart rhythm, fuel silent inflammation that stiffens arteries and slows blood flow, all under the banner of less sugar. And for someone with a changing metabolism, for someone whose body has fought long and hard to stay steady, that kind of disruption is anything but harmless. It's a quiet tug of war between what the label promises and what your heart actually experiences. That's the deception. Not that sugar is bad, but that its substitutes are always good. They aren't. Especially not when they appear meal after meal, in doses too small to sound alarms but too frequent to ignore, especially not when they pair with sodium and synthetic fats to create a storm your heart was never meant to weather. And so, while your taste buds stay calm, your system absorbs the cost, not in sharp crashes, but in small withdrawals from your heart's reserves, until one day you wonder why your energy is always gone, why your weight won't budge, why you feel like you're doing everything right and nothing's improving. But let's pause here, not in panic, but in truth. Because by now it might feel like everything is dangerous, that your freezer is a threat, that your habits are hurting you, that even a microwave has turned against your heart. But that's not the truth. The microwave is not your enemy. It never was. The machine didn't choose what you put inside it. It didn't invent the ingredients. It didn't write the label. It simply did what you asked, quickly, reliably, silently. It stood beside you when you didn't have the energy to cook, when your joints ached, when time felt too short and appetites felt too thin. It kept you fed when fatigue made even a pot of soup feel impossible. And that matters. The microwave isn't the villain, it's the partner, if you let it be, because what's inside those plastic trays isn't the only option, it's just the most marketed one. There are foods your microwave can bring to life, ones that heal, that calm, that steady your rhythm instead of disturbing it. Foods that don't need glossy photos or cartoon hearts to prove their worth. Real vegetables, lean proteins, grains that don't arrive pre-soaked in salt water, soups that don't come with 10 kinds of sugar. You've been using the microwave as a crutch. What if you used it as a tool? That's the shift. Not throwing it out, not starting over, just changing the relationship. Recognizing that what's been harming you isn't heat or speed. It's the quiet ingredients chosen by people who don't know your heart, your history, your aging kidneys, your delicate vessels. And once you see that, the fear softens. Because you don't have to give up the convenience. You don't have to battle your body. You just have to make the microwave work with you, not against you. And that's not a revolution. That's a small, steady turn toward healing. And here's where the quiet turns. Because just as your body adapted to what wore it down, it can adapt to what lifts it up. Healing doesn't need to arrive in grand gestures or perfect meals. It begins in small repairs, the kind your heart is still capable of making if you give it the chance. Your blood vessels may feel stiff today, your pressure may run high, your energy may dip before dinner, and your sleep may come in fragments. But that's not the final version of you, because change isn't reserved for the young. It belongs to anyone who interrupts the pattern, even a little. When you reduce the sodium, your vessels begin to soften. Not overnight, but week by week, as water stops pooling and pressure finds balance. When you remove the fake sugars and synthetic fats, your insulin calms down, your cravings quiet, your brain fog begins to lift. When your food becomes less about shelf life and more about cell life, your body recognizes it, and it thanks you. In steadier mornings, deeper breaths, lighter steps. You may not notice it right away. The healing is quiet too. A day where your ankles don't swell. A walk that leaves you less winded. A night without that strange flutter beneath your ribs. These are victories, not dramatic but deep. Because your heart hasn't given up on you. It's been compensating, stretching, managing under pressure. And now, when you finally ease that burden, even slightly, it doesn't punish you. It recovers. That's what hearts do. That's what aging bodies still know how to do. You don't need a new machine. You don't need a special diet. You just need a little truth, a little honesty on the plate, and a little faith in the body that's been waiting all this time to be treated like it still matters. And it does. You still matter. And once you believe your body can still respond, the question becomes simple. What can I change today? Not everything. Not all at once. Just one shelf, one habit, one quiet rescue at a time. The pantry isn't your enemy. It's a place of choice. And with a few thoughtful swaps, it becomes your medicine cabinet. Start with the base, ditch the mystery meals, and look instead for microwavable grains, brown rice, quinoa, lentils. Not the seasoned packets, but the plain ones, the kind with nothing added but heat. These form the foundation of a better meal. Steady fuel that keeps your blood sugar stable, your energy balanced, your digestion calm. Next, stock frozen vegetables, not the kind in creamy sauces or glazed with sugar, but plain cut broccoli, green beans, spinach, carrots. They don't spoil, they're ready in minutes. And when they're not drowned in additives, they offer fiber, potassium, and the antioxidants your heart's been quietly craving. Then add proteins that don't come pre-dressed. Canned beans with no added salt, rotisserie chicken, skin removed, hard-boiled eggs, wild-caught salmon in vacuum packs, even unsalted nuts or a scoop of cottage cheese. These bring repair without the noise. They satisfy without the spikes. And don't forget flavor, but let it come from herbs, not hidden sugars. Garlic powder, smoked paprika, lemon juice, fresh or dried basil. These don't tax your system. They remind you food can still be joyful, still taste like something worth eating. You don't need to purge your pantry, you just need to curate it, slowly, intentionally. Let the old meals run out and replace them with better tools. Meals that still microwave in minutes, but this time, serve your heart instead of testing it. Because when your shelves change, your meals change. And when your meals change, your body finally gets the message. It's safe to feel better now. You open the freezer, and for the first time in a long time, you pause not out of habit, but out of intention. This time, you're not reaching for the tray with the glossy photo and the vague health claim. You're assembling something new, not complicated, not gourmet, just honest. A small pouch of brown rice goes in first. 90 seconds. That's all. No seasoning, no sauce, Just the grain, soft and nutty, a warm foundation. Next, a handful of frozen spinach and carrots, tossed into a bowl, splashed with a spoonful of water, covered with a plate, microwaved until steam rises. They emerge bright, not soggy, alive, not dulled. A few dashes of garlic powder, a shake of black pepper, a drizzle of olive oil. Suddenly they taste like something you chose, not something chosen for you. Then comes protein. Maybe half a can of no-salt pinto beans, rinsed and warmed. Maybe some shredded chicken left from Sunday. Maybe a soft-boiled egg, sliced gently on top. No additives, no preservatives, just clean fuel, a squeeze of lemon, a sprinkle of herbs, a shake of paprika or a pinch of turmeric, not for show, but for the quiet way they soothe inflammation without saying a word. And in 5 minutes you've built it. A microwave meal that doesn't just fill space in your stomach, it speaks to your blood, your nerves, your cells. It doesn't spike, it doesn't bloat, it doesn't leave you lightheaded or swollen. It nourishes without applause. And your body knows the difference. This isn't a diet, it's a reunion between you and your rhythm, between food and function, between your past habits and your future days. You didn't throw out your microwave, you reclaimed it. You turned it from an escape hatch into a healing tool. And now, when you sit down to eat, something is different. Not louder, not grander, just calmer. Because what you're eating no longer asks your body to fight. It asks it to rest. And it's there, in that soft moment after the meal, that the real shift begins. Not in the ingredients alone, but in the quiet decision you made without fanfare. You didn't announce a new lifestyle. You didn't sign up for anything. You just chose differently at a moment that used to run on autopilot. That's where the momentum hides, in the margins. It's in the choice you make at 6 p.m. when the day has worn you down and your energy is thinner than your patience. It's in that quick scan of the freezer where your hand hovers over the old tray, then moves just slightly to what you've built instead. It's in the Sunday prep, when you set aside 3 small containers with real ingredients, knowing your future self will be too tired to decide. Change doesn't live in dramatic declarations. It lives in these margins, the overlooked edges of your day where habit used to take over. And now, slowly, you're rewriting them. You notice that swelling doesn't come like it used to, that your chest doesn't flutter as much after eating, that you can read for longer without nodding off. These aren't just side effects, they're signals that your body feels safe again, that it's not just surviving, it's recalibrating, one decision at a time. And yes, some days you'll fall back on the old tray. You'll reach for convenience without thinking. But the difference now is, you'll notice. You'll feel the bloating, the fatigue, the faint pressure. And that noticing, that's power. Because once you feel the contrast, you can't unfeel it. And so your new momentum grows, not from perfection, but from awareness. Not from shame, but from quiet proof. The kind that lives in ankles that don't swell, in sleep that comes easier, in a heart that no longer has to whisper to be heard. And now, when the quiet comes, it no longer carries worry. It's not the stillness of pressure building or breath catching. It's not the hush before something goes wrong. It's the stillness your body has been asking for all along. The stillness of peace returning to the rhythm of your chest. The stillness of a heart that no longer has to strain between meals, no longer has to adapt to ingredients it doesn't recognize, no longer has to protest just to be heard. You sit down to eat and there's no tension behind your eyes, no tightness waiting in your throat. The meal is warm, simple, and satisfying, not because it's perfect, but because it respects your body. You've turned a routine that once brought harm into one that brings healing, without removing the microwave, without overhauling your life, just by changing what you chose to put inside. And your body responded, quietly, steadily. The fog in your mind lifted a little. Your energy returned, not all at once, but enough to notice. Your blood pressure readings started to drop, a point here, 2 points there, until your doctor paused during your visit and asked, "What are you doing differently?" You smile, because the answer isn't dramatic, it's not flashy, it's not a new pill or a fancy diet. It's a quieter kind of change, one that happened because you listened, because you believed your body could still change, because you chose to stop feeding it the lie that aging meant decay. You now live in a rhythm that honors what your heart needs at this stage in life, not by rejecting convenience, but by reclaiming it, not by fearing food, but by finally understanding it. The microwave is still in your kitchen, still humming gently in the background, but now it's not part of the problem, it's part of the solution. It brings life back into the bowl, ease without sacrifice, nourishment without noise, and your heart, that patient, powerful, resilient heart, no longer suffers in silence. It rests, it recovers, it moves forward, not loudly, just quietly, well.